There are places beneath this planet that should not exist. Not because they were built in secret, not because they are hidden behind locked doors, and not because maps forgot to mark them, but because when they were finally found, even the people trained to explain the Earth had to stop and stare. Entire worlds have been discovered underground, forests growing inside caves, rivers moving through total darkness for miles, crystals the size of telephone poles, cities buried beneath ordinary streets, ecosystems sealed off from the surface for millions of years, evolving by rules that seem to belong to another planet. The deeper we go, the stranger it gets. Down there, the planet keeps secrets differently. On the surface, weather erases things. Time buries things. Human beings build over things. But underground, some places survive untouched, waiting in total darkness until one collapse, one wrong turn, one mining tunnel, one scientific drill, or one accident reveals that something impossible has been sitting beneath our feet the entire time. Scientists have entered these places with maps, instruments, lasers, diving gear, chemical sensors, and years of training. And in more than one case, the first reaction was not explanation. It was disbelief. This is our countdown of the top 10 underground places on Earth even scientists were shocked to discover. Stay until the end, because number 1 is a sealed world beneath Romania, so alien that when researchers first entered it, they realized they were looking at life that had evolved in isolation for millions of years without sunlight. Before we begin, let us know in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is right now. We want to see how far underground this video reaches. Number 10. Cave of the Crystals, Mexico. More than 900 feet below the Naka mine in northern Mexico, workers broke into a chamber that looked less like geology and more like science fiction. Inside was a cave filled with giant selenite crystals, some of them over 30 feet long and weighing many tons, rising from the floor and thrusting through the chamber at every angle like frozen beams of light. The place did not look real. It looked designed. The crystals were so large, so smooth, and so impossibly clear that the first photographs seemed fake to people who had never seen them before. But the cave was real, and the science behind it only made the discovery more astonishing. For hundreds of thousands of years, mineral-rich water heated by magma below the mountain sat at a stable temperature inside the chamber. That stability mattered, because when temperature, chemistry, and time remain in the right balance for long enough, crystals do not just form, they keep growing. And in Naka, they kept growing for a span of time so immense that the chamber became one of the most extraordinary crystal environments ever discovered on Earth. But there was a problem. Human beings are not supposed to be in that cave. The air temperature inside reached around 136 degrees Fahrenheit, with humidity so high that sweat could not evaporate. Without special cooling suits and breathing equipment, a person could collapse in minutes. That danger is part of what made the place so shocking. The cave had not only produced giant crystals, it had protected them by becoming almost uninhabitable. Researchers who entered it described the experience as overwhelming. The scale destroyed normal sense of size. Crystals thicker than trees crossed the chamber in every direction. The air felt like boiling pressure. The cave was silent except for the sound of equipment and breathing. Scientists had known that crystals could grow large. Number 9, Lechuguilla Cave, New Mexico, USA. For years, Lechuguilla was just a small, unremarkable opening in the desert of southeastern New Mexico. Cavers knew about the entrance, but no one suspected what lay below. Then in the 1980s, explorers pushed through a narrow passage and found a drop that opened into something enormous. What followed was one of the most surprising cave discoveries in modern history. Lechuguilla was not just another cave. It was a vast underground labyrinth stretching for more than 150 miles, descending deep beneath the desert in a system of chambers, shafts, and passages filled with formations unlike almost anything else on Earth. Most caves are formed mainly by carbonic acid and rainwater, dissolving limestone from above. Lechuguilla appears to have formed largely from below, through sulfuric acid rising upward from deep sources and eating through the rock in a completely different way. That matters because it created a cave chemistry so unusual that researchers found formations few people had ever seen before. Delicate gypsum chandeliers, massive white columns, strange mineral growths curling from walls like coral. Rooms so pristine that even a footprint felt like damage. And then there were the microbes. Scientists studying Lechuguilla found microorganisms living in total darkness, isolated from the surface, feeding on minerals rather than sunlight. Some had likely evolved with minimal outside contact for enormous stretches of time. That discovery shocked microbiologists because it expanded ideas about how life could survive underground, and by extension, how life might survive on other worlds. If microbes could live in deep rock, cut off from sunlight, feeding on chemistry alone, then the underground of Earth was not just geology, it was a biological frontier. Lechuguilla also forced a change in mindset. Number 8. Derinkuyu Underground City, Turkey. In the Cappadocia region of central Turkey, there are landscapes of soft volcanic rock shaped into towers, valleys, and ridges that already look unusual from above ground. But one of the greatest shocks in the region was not on the surface. It was below it. In 1963, a man renovating his house in the town of Derinkuyu knocked through a wall and discovered a hidden passage. That passage led to another, and another. What he had found was the entrance to an enormous underground city carved deep into the earth. Derinkuyu descended multiple levels below ground and contained living quarters, kitchens, storage rooms, ventilation shafts, wells, stables, communal areas, places of worship, and passages that could be sealed with massive circular stone doors. This was not a tunnel. It was not a cellar. It was a city, a place designed to shelter thousands of people underground for long periods of time. That alone would have been extraordinary. What shocked archaeologists even more was the sophistication. The ventilation system was so effective that fresh air could reach deep levels. The layout showed planning, defense, and survival strategy. Entire communities had lived below the surface in a space hidden from invaders above. There are estimates that tens of thousands of people may have used the broader underground network in the region during periods of danger. And Derinkuyu was not alone. It was part of a much larger tradition of subterranean architecture in Cappadocia. Still, discovering such a large, organized underground city beneath an ordinary modern settlement felt almost unbelievable. The contrast is what makes Derinkuyu so powerful. You can walk through a normal town in daylight, pass homes, shops, roads, and then descend into a buried world where ancient people solved the problem of survival by moving an entire community underground. Number 7. Son Doong Cave, Vietnam. In central Vietnam, inside the forests of Phong Nha Bang National Park, there was once a hidden opening in a limestone cliff that local people knew about but no one fully explored. Wind and mist came out of it. The jungle around it was dense. The descent looked dangerous. For years, that was enough to keep it a rumor. Then in 2009, an expedition returned to the entrance and discovered something almost absurd in scale. Son Doong was not just a cave, it was a subterranean world large enough to contain its own weather systems, underground river, and jungle. Its largest chambers were so vast that entire city blocks of skyscrapers could fit inside them. In sections where the ceiling had collapsed long ago, sunlight poured through openings and created isolated underground ecosystems where trees grew, mist gathered, and clouds formed beneath the earth. To understand why scientists were shocked, you have to understand how rare true scale is underground. Many caves are long, some are deep, a few are beautiful. Son Doong was enormous in a way that felt almost architecturally impossible. It had spaces so large that perspective broke down. Walls vanished into darkness. Passageways widened into landscapes. Underground river channels cut through chambers with the energy of surface canyons. When researchers entered it, they were not just mapping a cave, they were exploring terrain. The cave also held unusual formations including giant stalagmites, delicate calcite structures, and cave pearls formed over immense time. But what made Son Doong unforgettable was the feeling that underground and above ground had partially merged. A cave is supposed to be enclosed. This one contained whole pockets of life lit by shafts of sunlight, with jungle growth reaching upward beneath a collapsed roof, as if the earth had opened just enough to let an inside world begin. Number 6. Krubera Cave, Georgia. In the Arabica Massif of the Western Caucasus, in terrain already known for rugged limestone and difficult access, a cave entrance led into a descent that would eventually take explorers deeper into the earth than almost anyone thought possible. Krubera Cave, also known as Movile Cave, became famous for one reason. For years, it was the deepest known cave on Earth. That title sounds impressive in a simple way until you look at the numbers. Explorers descended more than 7,000 feet into the system. That is not a hike. That is an expedition through vertical shafts, flooded sections, extreme cold, technical climbs, and isolated chambers, where every meter deeper makes retreat more difficult and rescue more complicated. Scientists and cave explorers were shocked because Krubera demonstrated just how far karst systems could penetrate into the Earth under the right geological conditions. It was not just deep, it kept being deeper than expected. Teams would map one level, think they understood the system, and then find more. Another shaft, another passage, another submerged section leading onward. The deeper they went, the more the cave turned into a test of human endurance and underground logistics. Equipment had to be hauled through punishing vertical terrain. Camps were established inside the cave. Progress slowed to the pace of technical problem-solving. At those depths, the cave becomes a world ruled by darkness, dripping water, rope systems, and absolute reliance on training. There is no casual movement. Everything takes effort. But beyond the athletic challenge, Krubera shocked scientists because it expanded limits. Before discoveries like this, underground depth had one set of assumptions. After Krubera, the scale of what caves could do in mountain limestone changed. Biologists also found life in the system, including cave-adapted organisms surviving under conditions of cold, darkness, and isolation. We are halfway through, and the underground worlds ahead only become more unbelievable. If you are still watching, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next one. And tell us in the comments which place has shocked you the most so far. Last time, viewers checked in from all over the world. Let us see if we can go even deeper this time. Number 5, Sac Actun, Mexico. Beneath the Yucatan Peninsula lies a flooded labyrinth so vast that for years people were exploring major sections of it without realizing how much of the system was connected. Sac Actun is one of the largest underwater cave systems on Earth, a submerged network of tunnels, chambers, sinkholes, and passages stretching for hundreds of miles through limestone beneath the jungle. To divers, it is already legendary. To scientists, it was shocking for several reasons at once. First, the scale. A cave system this extensive beneath relatively flat terrain is extraordinary by itself. Second, the preservation. Because many parts of the network were sealed from surface disturbance for long periods, they preserved evidence of ancient climates, sea level changes, extinct animals, and early human activity. Divers and researchers found bones, fossils, and archaeological remains in sections of the cave where time seemed layered into the stone. Some of the most significant discoveries included Ice Age animal remains and human skeletons from some of the earliest inhabitants of the region. That turned Sac Actun into something much larger than a diving destination. It became a submerged archive. The cave system also revealed the hidden relationship between cenotes and the underground water system of the Yucatan. On the surface, cenotes appear as beautiful sinkholes filled with blue water. Below ground, many are connected like windows into a larger flooded world. That realization changed how scientists understood the hydrology of the entire region. Number 4, Cueva de Villa Luz, Mexico. In the state of Tabasco in southern Mexico, there is a cave where the air can sting your lungs, the water can burn your skin, and the walls are coated with substances produced by microbial life, feeding on chemistry most creatures would find poisonous. Cueva de Villa Luz is not famous because it is the largest or deepest underground place on this list. It is famous because it feels like the kind of environment scientists expect to find on another planet. The cave is rich in hydrogen sulfide. That gas reacts with oxygen and water to form sulfuric acid, shaping the cave and creating conditions hostile to ordinary life. The smell has been compared to rotten eggs, but that description barely captures the severity. In high enough concentration, the gas is dangerous. Prolonged exposure can be harmful. Researchers entering certain sections need protective precautions, and even short visits can feel physically overwhelming. What shocked scientists was not just the chemistry, it was the biology. Microbial mats and bizarre cave-adapted organisms were found surviving in an environment of darkness, toxic gas, acidic moisture, and mineral-fed ecosystems. Instead of relying on sunlight, life in the cave is supported by chemosynthesis, using chemical reactions as the base of the food chain. That is a profound idea, because it means sunlight, which most surface life depends on, directly or indirectly, is not always the foundation. In a place like Villa Luz, chemistry takes over. Researchers studying such caves were stunned because they offered real-world models for how life might exist in extreme subsurface environments on Earth and potentially elsewhere in the solar system. The cave also demonstrated that underground worlds can be chemically active in ways surface intuition does not prepare you for. Most people think of caves as dry stone, maybe water, maybe bats, maybe silence. Villa Luz is something else. Number 3, Lake Vostok, Antarctica. Beneath more than 2 miles of Antarctic ice, under one of the coldest and most isolated regions on the planet, lies a hidden lake larger than many people ever imagined possible beneath a frozen continent. Lake Vostok is not a cave in the ordinary sense. It is a subglacial world, sealed below the ice, buried under crushing pressure, and cut off from the surface for perhaps millions of years. Its existence shocked scientists because for a long time Antarctica was imagined as frozen solid in the most literal way. Then radar and geophysical studies revealed something extraordinary. Far below the ice sheet was a liquid freshwater lake, vast, dark, and isolated, protected from freezing by pressure and geothermal heat from below. That discovery transformed scientific thinking. Suddenly, Antarctica was not just a frozen surface environment. It had hidden water worlds below the ice, and Lake Vostok was the largest and most dramatic of them. The questions came immediately. Was there life in the lake? If so, what kind? How do you study a place like that without contaminating it? The difficulty was enormous. Drill into the lake carelessly, and you risk introducing surface microbes into an ecosystem that may have remained isolated longer than human civilization has existed. So for years, the approach to Lake Vostok became one of the most delicate scientific challenges on Earth. Researchers had to balance the urge to explore against the responsibility to preserve. That tension is part of what made the discovery so shocking. This was not simply a hidden chamber underground. It was a possible, isolated aquatic world beneath Antarctic ice, a place so pristine and so inaccessible that reaching it risked damaging the very things scientists wanted to understand. Lake Vostok also mattered far beyond Antarctica. It became a model for thinking about icy moons such as Europa and Enceladus, where oceans may exist beneath frozen crusts. Number 2, Shuanghedong Cave System, China. In Guizhou Province in southwestern China, a region of rugged karst terrain and heavy rainfall has produced one of the most extensive cave systems on the planet. Shuanghedong is a maze of tunnels, shafts, underground rivers, side passages, and chambers so complex that teams have returned again and again, extending the map length each time. That alone is impressive. But what shocked scientists was not just the growing scale, it was the diversity. Inside this single underground system, researchers have found multiple internal climates, rare cave formations, underground waterfalls, vast chambers, hidden streams, fossils, and living species adapted to darkness. Some passages are wet and active with flowing water. Others are dry and decorated with formations that took immense spans of time to build. The cave feels less like one place than an entire underground continent broken into corridors. Every major expedition seemed to reveal that the system was larger and more complicated than expected. That is one of the most unsettling patterns in cave science. You think you are studying a cave? Then it becomes a system. Then the system becomes a network. Then the network becomes a world. Shuanghedong also demonstrated how incomplete our knowledge of the underground still is. China is a country with extensive scientific institutions, long settlement history, and large regions that have been inhabited for ages. And yet even there, one of the planet's great subterranean systems was still growing on the map as recently as modern expeditions. That means the underground remains one of the last places on Earth where size itself can still hide. Biologists studying the system found cave fish, invertebrates, and microbial life adapted to darkness and nutrient scarcity. Hydrologists examined how water shapes and connects the cave. Geologists looked at the karst processes that allowed such complexity to develop. Number 1. Movile Cave, Romania. And now the underground discovery that stunned scientists not only because of where it was, but because of what was living inside. In 1986, near Mangalia in southeastern Romania, workers drilling in the area accidentally broke into a sealed cave system that had been isolated from the surface for roughly 5.5 million years. What researchers found inside changed the way scientists think about life underground. Movile Cave is not like the caves most people imagine. The air contains low oxygen, high carbon dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide. The atmosphere is dangerous. The water is chemically unusual. The cave is hot, humid, and hostile. And yet it is alive. Not just with a few microbes clinging to survival, but with a functioning ecosystem that developed without sunlight. At the base of that ecosystem are microorganisms that obtain energy through chemosynthesis, using chemical reactions instead of photosynthesis. Those microbes support a web of life, including cave-adapted spiders, scorpions, centipedes, isopods, leeches, and other invertebrates, many of them found nowhere else on Earth. Some species are blind, some are pale or translucent. Many are so specialized to the cave that they could not survive outside it. Scientists were shocked for a simple reason. This was not just life in a cave. This was an isolated biosphere, a sealed evolutionary experiment that had been running underground since before humans existed. For millions of years, while climates changed, civilizations rose, languages formed, and entire histories played out above, Movile remained cut off below, developing its own community of organisms in total darkness under toxic air. That discovery was profound, because it proved that a complex ecosystem could persist without any reliance on sunlight as we normally understand it. In other words, the cave was not simply weird. It was scientifically revolutionary. The cave protected its own strangeness by remaining sealed until modern times. And once scientists finally entered it, they realized they were looking at one of the most extraordinary underground discoveries ever made. Not the biggest cave, not the deepest, not the most beautiful in the conventional sense, but perhaps the most conceptually unsettling. A place beneath Romania, where the rules surface life depends on, were quietly replaced by another system, one powered by chemistry, isolation, and deep time. Movile Cave is the kind of discovery that forces a painful thought. If a world this strange could remain hidden beneath our feet till 1986, how many other underground places still exist that would completely change what we think the Earth is capable of hiding? Those are the 10 underground places on Earth even scientists were shocked to discover. From giant crystals growing in a furnace beneath Mexico, to a buried city in Turkey, a jungle inside a Vietnamese cave, a hidden lake under Antarctic ice, and a sealed ecosystem in Romania that rewrote assumptions about how life can survive. Every one of these places is real. Every one of them is on this planet right now. And every one of them proves the same thing. The surface is not the whole story. Not even close. Beneath deserts, mountains, jungles, towns, ice sheets, and limestone plains, the Earth is still holding chambers, rivers, archives, and living systems that can stun even the people trained to study them. We like to imagine that the age of discovery is mostly over, that satellites have mapped everything important, that science has named every major wonder, that the blank spaces are gone. But underground, blank space survives. Underground, the map still breaks. And when it does, what appears is sometimes so strange, so large, or so biologically unexpected that the first honest scientific response is not certainty. It is shock. Which place shocked you the most? Tell us in the comments.